is Retro Gamer Ranting. How are you guys doing? I'm doing fine. I'm going to do something a little different today. I usually, as you can tell by the name, I usually talk about video games and do reviews and gameplay and stuff like that. But today I actually want to talk about wrestling, which is another one of my hobbies is watching wrestling. Well, I've just gotten back into it, actually. And I wanted to talk about Wrestlemania 31, which happened yesterday, at least at the time of me recording this. Not sure if this is going to get uploaded. But yeah, so quick history on me being a wrestling fan. I grew up a wrestling fan in the 80s and 90s. Basically went all through the Attitude Era. I'm one of those Attitude Era people. I'm sorry. But I also did appreciate a lot of the stuff before it as well. I stopped watching wrestling about, it was around the time I was going to college and stuff like that as it was, but at the same time it was a good time to stop, I felt, because it was around the Invasion angle. It was after WWE bought WCW, so in my opinion, I just sort of felt like now that the WWE, didn't have any competition anymore, that it really wasn't worth watching wrestling anymore. Which probably wasn't true on my half, but, you know, again, it just felt like, well, it was the end of an era. I didn't really feel like there was much for me to watch anymore. Fast forward to, I don't know, about 3 years ago, I started reading up on it again. Not watching it, but reading up on it on vlogs and review stuff, and then I started listening to some podcasts. One of them, my favorite, being the Solo Monster Sounds Off. Probably one of the best wrestling podcasts, and I sort of kept up with the news that way. And then I started looking around and watching some TNA, watching some ROH, the indie stuff mostly, because mostly I just heard the WWE just didn't have much of a product anymore. And then I finally came back to watching some WWE last year around the time of the Royal Rumble. And so that whole Daniel Bryan fiasco at WrestleMania 30, I watched that and enjoyed it. And then after that, just slowly watched the product fall apart again with a bunch of bullcrap, with Daniel Bryan getting hurt, with Roman Reigns being out, and just them not knowing what to do. And then, of course, Brock getting the stuff. So I started watching at least a majority of my wrestling again, and I kind of try and keep up with everything as much as I can. I do like ROH, I do like the WWE sometimes. NXT is a great product, probably the best product that the WWE puts out, even though a lot of people feel it is probably trying to take out the indie scene, which is kind of sad, because I do enjoy the indie scene. So that's sort of a brief history of me as a wrestling fan. So it kind of brings bring you up to speed with what kind of old school perspective. So I did watch WrestleMania 31. I thought it was a great WrestleMania overall. It wasn't spectacular, but I wasn't disappointed. But at the same time, I wasn't overjoyed. As I was watching, it was exciting. I thought it seemed like everyone had a special entrance. They spent a lot more money on pyro and entrances this year. It's just like all of a sudden Vince McMahon just opened his frickin' bank account and said, take all the money and make this WrestleMania look amazing. So the entrances were just nuts. Rusev's entrance with a friggin' tank, and of course the Terminator tie-in with Triple H, which I kind of thought was a little ridiculous. So, oh yes, by the way, like I said, I usually talk video games, so if anyone's watching this as a wrestling fan, that's what all the setup is back there, all game-related and stuff like that, so please forgive that, that's distracting, but, you know, this is my setup in here. This is my sanctuary for doing my recordings, but, so, like I said, overall, a pretty solid experience. I didn't get to watch much of the pre-show, I guess. The tag team titles stayed where they were supposed to, with Tyson Kidd and Cesaro, which is good. I think those guys deserve a title around their waist, even if it's going to be the tag team title, because they're really great workers. They're just wonderful. It's too bad they weren't on the main card at WrestleMania. I don't know if they still get a WrestleMania payday, as they call it, being on the pre-show. I hope they do something. But it was pretty much a given that they were going to keep the title. I guess the only X factor in that four-way bout or whatever the heck it was the Usos. But I guess apparently one of the Usos were kind of hurt, so They were still able to wrestle, but they were kind of hurt. I guess there's a lot of people who are kind of hurt during this WrestleMania. I guess Triple H apparently had a problem with his leg, so they had to like change up a few things. Apparently, that was maybe one of the reasons for all the distractions during that. Let's see, Bray Wyatt apparently hurt his ankle before WrestleMania while he was practicing or working out or training or whatever. So there was that as well, and people weren't sure how the Undertaker was. He seemed pretty healthy. And then of course there's always everyone's still questioning if Daniel Bryan's 100%, because they just don't believe his neck is healed. And I guess you shouldn't blame him because all of a sudden he just had this miraculous recovery and came back. So I don't know. But yeah, so there's a couple of people who were possibly hurt going into WrestleMania. The Andre the Giant Battle Royal, that was just a big flop. Honestly, what should have happened was the Giant should have won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal last year. It would have been perfect. It was the first Battle Royal. It was the Giant, so it would have been fitting. And he was a babyface then anyway, so the fans would have bought it last year when he won the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. This year, they just absolutely hate him. They're sick of him. They're sick of seeing him. They're sick of seeing Kane. And they were all hyped up and like, oh, The Miz and Mizdow, So they were all hoping Mizdow was going to win. And it didn't. And that just gave, in WWE's eyes, that just gave the Giant more heat. And no, people generally hated the fact. Yeah, people didn't want him to win. So... And look at what happened to Cesaro last year. They did nothing with him. I mean, seriously, they just wasted such a great moment with Cesaro, and now he's, he's tag team champion. That's great, So I don't know. It just seemed like it was a wasted opportunity to give it to the Giant last year, and they gave Cesaro that push, but it didn't go anywhere. So I don't know. I mean, was it good for Cesaro? Yes. Was it bad for him? Yes, in the long run. So I don't know. So there was that. That was a pre-show. Blah 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 blah. Moving on. Opener with the 7-man tag team. I'm pretty sure. I might get some of the match things screwed up because sometimes that happens. But But the opener was the 7-man tag team. Exciting way to start. Too many people. Why R-Truth was in there is beyond me. I mean, three-way ladder match, fine. Even a 4-way ladder match, I would have been fine with. But when you get to 7, that's ridiculous because you have to already suspend your self. You have to just suspend your disbelief. You have to use your imagination enough as it is in this stuff that people are going to just be laying outside the ring for, 5 minutes while other people are in the ring doing their spots at normal ladder matches, which you're able to do. But when you have 7 people in a match, it turns into this whole thing where it's like, well, there's always going to be somebody up. There's no way everyone's going to be down at once. It just doesn't seem very wide. Was it 6 or 7? I don't know. I can't even remember all the people in it. I just knew R-Truth looked out of place there. I guess they wanted to give him a WrestleMania moment because maybe he's close to retiring. I don't know. Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler. If it would have been Daniel Bryan, Dolph Ziggler, Bad News Barrett, and Dean Ambrose, that would have been fine. That would have been all you needed, in my opinion. Because those were basically the 4 people that everyone cared about. So it was just one of those things where it's like we have all these people that the fans like, but we don't know what to do with them, so let's just throw them all together and throw the Intercontinental title. And oh yeah, since we don't want the fans to crap all over the rest of WrestleMania, we better make sure Daniel Bryan wins so he has a title and people won't boo the rest of the time. That was basically what that was. There were a lot of rumors about the whole fact that why there were so many people in it was, oh, well, Daniel Bryan's still hurt and they don't want to put an entire match on him like that, so that way he'll be able to rest for most of it or what, whatever. If he was hurt, then why would they put him in a ladder match? It's the most dangerous thing ever. There were some really cool spots. Dean Ambrose took that sick bump through the frickin' ladder which he always does crap like that. It's just so... he could be a PG-era Stone Cold Steve Austin, but they just book him like a clown half the time. It's just so much loss. It's weird that he's the odd man out of the Shield, because he has so much, you know, the fans were into him. They gave him a big pop when he came out. Just, I don't know. But, you know, it had some great spots. You know, some goofy spots, like Bad News Barrett doing his bull arm or his bull whatever the heck it is to everyone. Just running around going, oh. Which his finisher is probably one of the worst finishers in wrestling right now. Probably next to the beauty shot with in NXT with Tyler Breeze. Sorry, I'm not a huge fan of him. I know a lot of people are, but I just think his finishing moves are like, oh, I'm going to hit you with the softest part of my leg and you're going to get knocked out, is his setup move. So it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so that's just a stupid finishing move on Bad News Barrett's part. And he was just running around hitting people with his bull arm or whatever the heck they call it. So that was kind of weird to me. But yeah, it was a good way to start the match. And so to move on, you had the Triple H and Sting match, which just turned into a carnival. I wasn't happy with the outcome of this because it just they made it. By the way, the commentators and and Triple H, at least, Sting wasn't making it into this because he said on multiple occasions, "I'm not doing this for WCW. I'm doing this to stop you because you're a jerk." He said that straight out. But you know, Triple H and the Authority and the commentators wouldn't let go of the fact that, oh, he's the last holdover from WCW. He's the last holdover, and you know, oh, you know, this is a forgotten war. I don't know why he's back. You know, why is he doing this? And Sting's like, dude, I'm not doing this for WCW. WCW's dead. And it's so stupid. And that's all they did. And of course, and then when DX came out, and then when the NWO came out, by the way, someone tweeted this, so I'm stealing this from someone's tweet, I'm sorry. But it was a cool thing to see the NWO. But someone tweeted, when does the NWO stand for Now We're Old? Because out of all those people, out of Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, and while Hogan was fine, I guess, none of them had any hair dye. They couldn't just dye their hair for one night so they didn't look like so ancient. I mean, DX still looked like DX. You know, they still looked fine. But the NWO looked like a bunch of grandpas. I mean, would it have been that bad? I mean, unless if it was a spur of the moment thing where there's like, hey, you know, Triple H's leg hurts. We need to do something else special in the match. Let's get the NWO back together. So grab Scott Hall and grab Kevin Nash, and you know, we'll have Hogan there. We'll just get you in your get up, and you can walk out there. And that's what they did. That took forever. Them just walking down the aisle, and DX just standing there going, "Ooh, we're gonna beat him up. Ooh, we're gonna beat him up." It's like, you could at least meet him halfway down. Be a champ here and meet him halfway down the ramp, please. Because this is going to take forever, and it did. So there was all this distraction and stuff, and quite honestly, I sort of lost interest in it once it turned into this big distraction. And of course, in the end, Triple H won. Not of course. A lot of people were like, well, of course Sting's going to win. Why would he come to the WWE and lose his first match? Guess what? Because Triple H has to prove he killed WCW. He did it with he did it with Booker T. I was going to say Stevie Ray. He did it with Booker T, where he squashed him. He did it with Taz when he squashed him in order to squash ECW. Do you notice that? And so the last holdover from WCW, Sting, guess who has the job to Triple H? And it was stupid. And then in the end, of course, Triple H breaks kayfabe, and he goes over and he shakes his hand. You know, they're staring at each other. Another great WrestleMania moment, shaking the hand of the guy that you just paid probably a lot of money to job to you. I mean, they really must be paying Sting a lot to be like, okay, Sting, you're coming in, but guess what? You're gonna job to Triple H, and we're gonna make it a big circus. We're gonna make it like it was WCW, because that's basically what WCW was back in the day. Run-ins all the time when it had to do with NWO, at least, and especially and even with DX, you know. And I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to do this is the invasion angle everyone wanted, so now we're going to give it to them years later, like 14 years later. It's like, no, this is what should have happened initially. Like, if they would have done this angle, if they would have paid the extra money to get Sting over there at the very least, instead of all just the jobbers and the nobodies from WCW, the invasion angle would have been so much better. If they would have had Kevin Nash, Sting, Scott Hall, or just a couple other NWO people, and they would have done a proper invasion angle that way, maybe, that would have been great. But, you know, they didn't do it. You know, and so now, 14 years later, oh, we'll give it to you now. No, too late. And, by the way, you also ruined that match, in my opinion. I mean, it was still a good match when it was going on. It's just all the extra distractions and, oh, Triple H has a sledgehammer. Oh, Sting has his bat. Ooh, what's going to happen? And, of course, a lot of people were confused because it wasn't made into a no disqualification match until, like, right before the match happened, apparently. And, again, I guess a lot of people were saying, well, that was because of Triple H's leg being hurt. So, it was cool to see DX and the NWO and everything, but at the same time, the NWO looked old as heck. Again, someone should have just sprung to go down to the local market and just grab some hair dye for these poor guys so they didn't look so old. I just feel so bad. It's just, I'm looking at them, I was like... And then that one shot where they were showing Hogan, Nash, Hall, and Sting all standing in the corner, it was the worst shot of the night. Those guys just looked so haggard, and it's just like, they looked like scared friggin' chickens in the corner with an owl swooping in on them. It wasn't a good shot at all. I mean, even Sting's hair was crazy. He looked like he had clown hair in that thing, and then, like, everyone just looked haggard. It was a bad shot. I'm just like, I know they're trying for an iconic shot right there, but, oh, it did not work. I just felt so bad. Okay, moving on. There was a women's match, a tag team match. I'll be honest with you, I was putting my son to bed during that, so I wasn't there for most of it. I guess AJ Lee and I guess the Bella Twins lost, and the cuter girls won. So yeah, AJ Lee and Paige. Sorry, the name slipped my head. Like I said, the cuter of the two teams won, in my opinion, because I don't know, the Bella Twins just looked like a plastic surgery wreck, but yeah, definitely. What I did catch the match looked fun, and it was great. And I guess it ran about 6 minutes or so, so they gave him a little time, not a lot of time, but you know, it was a good match. You know, nothing extraordinary, nothing as good as what NXT throws out there on a weekly basis, but it was nice. It was pretty decent from what I saw. Like I said, I'd have to go back and watch more. I think I'm going out of order again. I missed. I should have had this up at the start of it. Randy Orton and Seth Rollins. That was, I guess I could say, match of the night. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but it was still a great match. You know, Randy Orton's a great worker, and Seth Rollins is a great worker. And you put those two together, and they do a great match. Quite possibly, it ended with one of the greatest RKOs I've ever seen. I haven't seen all of Randy Orton's RKOs, but that was a great RKO. Just friggin' Seth Rollins going for another curb stomp and just getting lifted in the air and just BAM! And it was amazing, you know. It was great. J&J security, of course, got took out twice because reasons. You know, so now they, with what happened in the main event, now they can go further with that and maybe even get the belt back on Randy Orton again. But it was a great match. You know, it was a good match. It had some, nothing was overly spectacular, but the guys worked really good. And that was like during when it was probably the hottest, because the sun was really blaring during that match. So I'm sure it was really hard for him to do. So, yeah. So, moving on, I guess I already talked about Triple H and Sting. Let's go to John Cena defeated Rusev for the U.S. title, which is interesting, if you ask me, that they're finally giving John Cena a belt that wasn't the world title, which a lot of people think is a good thing. Now, brief history, I don't have any history with John Cena. Like I said, I mostly came back last year. So I don't have the John Cena hate other people do. The last time I watched John Cena, before I came back to wrestling, is my friend invited me over to watch the Hollywood Wrestlemania, the one where they're in Hollywood, and that was the first time John Cena won the world title against JBL, which JBL is a world champion. I remember laughing at that back then, too. So it was this sort of a fluke thing where, I can't remember which WrestleMania that was. So that was also, I think, the first time Batista won his world match against Triple H. And I remember thinking back then, like, why is there so many titles right now? Why is there so many world titles? I think there was a tables, ladders, and chairs match against the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys. So some things never changed, because I remember leaving wrestling with those matches still going on. So that was the last time I saw John Cena. So I don't really have that John Cena hate. Apparently, a lot of people were saying afterwards, I don't know how true this is, depending on, on Twitter and on a couple of podcasts and stuff, that the WWE has learned to mess with levels, audience levels, and so there was a lot of audience tampering during this. So when people were cheering for John Cena, they would up the levels so it sounded like more people were. When people were cheering for Rusev, they would cut the levels and they'd make the announcers louder. So, it's one of those things where they're trying to fake into people liking him. I will admit that the opening America package that came out before John Cena just felt so 90s to me. It felt too old. I'm American. I love America, but I see a package like that, and especially when Stephanie McMahon came out later and was talking like, oh, this is seen all over the world now. Everyone can get their network all over the world and see this. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, that package was great for, us. But, all the people from around the world watching something like that, I feel like when that video was going on, which also, by the way, Bush Jr. seemed to have a lot of quotes in that for some odd reason. So whoever made that video, or maybe Vince McMahon is a big Bush Jr. fan, I'm not sure. But, with all the presidents and all the wheat fields and, ooh, America, we're so awesome, ooh, America. I just feel like the rest of the world besides America, and even some people in America, just did one collective eye roll at the same time while watching that. I mean, this stuff belongs in the 80s and 90s. That was a bygone era where America against the world, America against the Russia, whatever country America didn't like at that moment. WWF at the time would bring someone in to represent that, and Hulk Hogan would be the one to take them down. One of those things. But doing that kind of angle nowadays just feels so outdated. And that package just made me squirm like, So, great match overall. Lana was there, which was cool because people wanted to see her for obvious reasons. In the end, John Cena got a pin instead of a submission, which is interesting. A lot of people were expecting him to submit him, but it didn't happen. So good. He basically became the new U.S. champion, and they teased Rusev dumping Lana, which pretty much screws Rusev, because that's one of the few reasons why people liked him so much. So yeah, another guy buried, possibly, as I'm not sure whether they're going to go with Rusev now, if they're going to keep him feuding with him. A lot of people are saying, there's a lot of theories out there that, now that Daniel Bryan has the Intercontinental title, and now that John Cena has the U.S. title, they will be able to unify them. They'll have a unification match and actually make the secondary title mean something again, which I hope. I really do. If the WWE will actually do that, I don't know. But like I said, it was a pretty solid match overall. A good amount of back and forth. Not much, like I said, Rusev had a pretty intense entrance. I mean, coming in to, the Russian anthem and then a tank, for crying out loud, was pretty amazing. So he definitely had his WrestleMania moment. Whether or not he will ever have it again, if he's going to get put in the mid-card or jobbed or whatever, because whatever, we will see. But hey, a good match overall. I feel sorry for Rusev because I'm not sure if he's going to get buried after this. Moving on, after that we had The Rock. Well, before that we had The Authority come out. and run their mouth. Of course, Stephanie McMahon being as annoying as ever. I don't care what anyone says. She's got one of the most annoying voices in wrestling. I don't care how cute everyone thinks she is or how good-looking she is. She's annoying. And she gives women in authority a really bad name. So I was actually really happy with what happened at the end of this. Of course, The Rock comes out, starts running his mouth off. That's a whole typical thing. But did anyone else notice how long of pauses The Rock took during this segment? Seriously. This segment took forever, and it's mostly because The Rock just stood there going, waiting for the fans to chant. And here's the thing, the fans didn't come across very well in this arena. Mostly because it was an open arena. So everything goes up. So it sort of turned into one of those things where The Rock was just sort of going, oh, okay, I'm just waiting for the fans. And I'm just like, talk. Start saying something. And this happened 1,000,000 times. And it kind of just, it really started turning me off to the whole thing. Because I'm just like, this is boring. And then it just turned into this whole thing of like, you're wasting time. You're wasting my time. You're waiting for it to get dark because the Undertaker's match is next and you want it to be darker for him. Whatever, all the reasons. So anyway, The Rock goes yada, yada, yada. Stephanie McMahon steps up and starts her demasculation process of being like, you can't touch me, I'm a woman in power, blah, blah, blah. What are you going to do, hit me? You ain't nothing without the McMahons. And I'm just like, oh my God. And of course, The Rock looks like he's going to leave, but he doesn't. He goes out and gets Ronda Rousey, who apparently is a big thing right now. Don't know much about it. She's cute, apparently she's a BA, a badass. She can handle her own. She's a good fighter, whatever, great. I've heard her name before. I think she might have even did a cameo on ROH during a tag team title match not too long ago, if I do recall. So that was kind of cool. The fans pop. There was more chitter, more talk, because that's all we need in WrestleMania is talk. And eventually, and that's just it. None of the talk meant anything. It was just like, I'm so awesome. It's just, I'm a McMahon. I'm all this power. You can't do nothing to me. You got to get out of my ring. Get out of my ring right now. And Ronda Rousey didn't move. And of course, it set up to this chain of events where Triple H was going to attack, and he gets attacked by The Rock, thrown into Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey hip tosses him, and then Stephanie McMahon smartly decides to try and attack her. And this really awkward kind of arm grab thing Ronda does to her twice. Like, it didn't make sense. Like, I was like, what is she doing? Like, obviously she didn't want to hurt her, because she probably could. She's a trained fighter. She probably could just rip her head off. And it just looked awkward. Like, I don't even think the fans knew what was going on. So, she got her, finally Stephanie McMahon actually gets her canumpus back, whatever that word is, gets hers, I guess. Of course, by another woman, because it can't be done by a guy. But yeah. So, and the Authority tucks their tail and runs, and it's basically a big tease for, maybe The Rock and Triple H are going to start a feud. Maybe Ronda Rousey will be a wrestler in the WWE now, Which, if she is, then from what I hear about how bad, like bad in a good way she is, like, well, they're pretty much going to have to give her that title. And that's just it. If she gets in the main, like, if she does wrestle in the WWE, which I don't think is going to happen, but if she ever did, like, you think you're going to give her a title called the Divas title, the Divas Championship? And in NXT, it's called the Women's title, by the way. So, like, if she won that title, like, I would do this Alundra Blaze thing where you throw the Divas title in the trash can, and then you reveal a woman's championship belt. Because you can't put something called the Divas title around an actual fighting machine like her. It's just insulting. So anyway, moving on from that. Besides the build-up, it was boring, a waste of time. It was fun to see Stephanie McMahon finally get hers. Too bad she had to talk so much during it. But whatever. And we move on to The Undertaker and Bray Wyatt. Each of them had Bray Wyatt had this weird scarecrow zombie entrance, It took him forever to get down to the ring. It seems to be a theme. It was a very long ramp as it was, so you think people would hustle a little faster, but since his ankle was probably hurting, so what are you going to do? So he had this weird zombie shuffle thing going on. And at the end of it, the fans popped for him, like, oh yeah, that was good. And then the Undertaker came out. Again, that took forever, because Undertaker has to walk slow, because it's the Undertaker. Big pop for him. Obviously the lights couldn't go down because the sun was still out. So it kind of took away from the entrance a little. Overall, great start to the match. Undertaker did a lot of old school stuff, including the old school. And then the middle of the match is just dead. Just a lot of punching, kicking, rest holds. And the crowd seemed kind of out of it during that too. It didn't really start revving up again. Bray Wyatt did a really ugly looking Sister Abigail to him that the Undertaker kicked out of. Well, first off, I think the Undertaker did manage to hit a tombstone pile driver. And he did that whole spot where Bray Wyatt kicks out and he does this, oh my god, I can't believe it, oh my god, that whole thing, which seems to be like this running theme with Undertaker Wrestlemania matches, where he's like, when someone kicks out of one of his finishers, he's like, the best one probably was when he went up against Shawn Michaels. Was it the first or the second time? I can't remember. It was when Shawn Michaels was doing the whole all white, I'm an angel, he's the devil kind of thing. I think it was that one where he was like, so he did that. Oh boy, but the Undertaker looked good. He did. I'm glad he had hair, because he looked ridiculous last year. He looked like he had more muscle than he did last year. Like, he looked so much better. He moved around a little better, but anytime there was a close-up shot of him, he was huffing. He was huffing and puffing. And that was early on. So it's getting to him, and I'm pretty sure, this was at his pace, and you can almost tell when the end of the match was going to happen, because it's just, Bray hits Undertaker hits his tombstone, Bray Wyatt, there's a fight back, and Bray Wyatt does a reversal to one of Undertaker's moves. It might have been another tombstone, and hits a really ugly Sister Abigail. Like, it looked like just a simple roll. It didn't look painful at all. And then he acted all shocked that it was kicked out. I'm just like, you just simply rolled him over you. That was, like, probably the ugliest Sister Abigail I've ever seen of him. And then, of course, it just finally moved. He was just punching, kicking, a couple of this, a couple of that. And then it finally went home. And there's more punching and kicking. Another Sister Abigail attempt that didn't work. And got reversed into a tombstone pile driver, and 1, 2, 3. Right before that, there was like this punch spot where they were both punching each other, and Bray Wyatt was just beating on him, and then he was laying on top of the Undertaker. And you kind of knew they were talking to each other right then. And here's another thing. For some odd reason, you could hear the wrestlers talking really well. I don't know if it was because the venue they were in, but there were a lot of times I heard people calling spots. Like, it wouldn't take much for you to just go in and up the audio a little, and you'd be able to hear people calling their spots. It wasn't just John Cena, but you kind of, like, even during this match, like, you kind of could... I could have sworn I heard The Undertaker telling Bray Wyatt to go home during that part. Like, okay, kid, it's time to go home. And so that's when that final sequence was. He was probably getting haggard. Who knows? Overall, it was an Undertaker match. It wasn't spectacular. He needed his win back, especially if they are going to build to a Sting Undertaker for next year. Who knows if that's going to happen, but, it was a match, Nothing particularly bad happened during it except for that ugly Sister Abigail. Does it put Bray Wyatt over? Not particularly, because he didn't, he had a match with The Undertaker that was good, And maybe he was limited too because if his ankle was hurting, So, what happened, It was good to see Undertaker back. And the fans popped for it. The Undertaker still looked exhausted, but... he got his win back. So good. Good to see you back, Undertaker. Hopefully he works with Bray some more.
Maybe not in matches, but maybe trying to build him up to be the new face of evil in the WWE, whether as a face or a heel, because I think Bray Wyatt could be that. So I think it was probably a real honor for Bray to be in there with him, even though he lost his second WrestleMania in a row. Main event time, folks. And what a main event it was. It was Seth Rollins cashing in his Money in the Bank during the Brock Lesnar-Roman Reigns match, and then pinning Roman Reigns. Now, first off, I'm not really going to talk about this match much, because all it was Suplex City. It was Roman Reigns getting his butt kicked for however long this match was for most of it, getting a few offensive attacks here and there towards the end, and Brock Lesnar selling pretty good. Brock Lesnar got busted open early, so Roman Reigns must have did a really stiff fist shot to him or something. I don't know. But yeah, so mostly it was just painful to watch those many suplexes hit Roman Reigns. I was just like, God, he's going to break the poor guy's neck. They were trying, I get what they were trying to do. They were trying to show just how tough this guy was. Like, he could take all these F5s, all these suplexes, and still kick out blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, when he was getting offense, he was giving it to, he was giving these big moves to Brock Lesnar, But the fans were popping for Brock Lesnar and booing substantially for Roman Reigns. I don't care what they were trying to do at the levels. They could not get the fans behind Roman Reigns. And I was so hard to watch this match, not just because of the really painful looking moves that Brock was doing to Roman Reigns. It was just, I felt sorry for this guy. Roman Reigns has this daughter. There was a cute picture of him sitting in the stands with his daughter before WrestleMania. He looks like he's a good guy. He's a company guy. He's doing what he's told. And the WWE pushed him into this situation. I'm sure he doesn't have much say to it. And even if he did want to say something, who's going to say, hey, kid, we're going to put you in the main event at WrestleMania? You may go over. Are you going to say no to that? No, because you're probably going to get a big payday, we win or lose. And he wasn't ready. He was gone. Like, all of last year was supposed to be building Roman Reigns up. All of last year. And he got hurt. He didn't, I don't think it was an injury from the ring. It was something else. I can't remember what it was, but he had to have surgery. He was out for most of the year, like Daniel Bryan. That put a big kink in the WWE's plans. But when he came back, they could have just said, okay, reset, we're going to push you for WrestleMania 32. But they just went back to trying to shove him down the fans' throats, and the fans were like, wait, you're trying to John Cena this guy. They gave him these stupid promos. They wouldn't let the guy talk like he used to do good promos when they just let him talk without giving him scripts. But then they started doing this, everything they were doing to this guy made it obvious that they were trying to manufacture him to be the next John Cena. And the fans just, I feel sorry for him. This isn't his fault. He's got the John Cena syndrome already. I have nothing against John Cena either. I think he's a good worker. I think the stuff he does outside the ring is great. I'm sure Roman Reigns will be the same thing. I have nothing against Roman Reigns. I will not boo this guy because it's not his fault. This is WWE's fault for building him up the wrong way. And the fans crap all over him because of it. They should not be crapping all over this poor guy. But at the same time, they feel like they have to, or else they're just, encouraging the WWE to continue to do it. So unfortunately, Roman Reigns gets the blunt of this because they have no one else to boo. They can't, Sam standing outside of Vince McMahon's office and booing him like a flash mob of people standing outside the WWE going, boo! So the poor guy, he's putting his heart in it. He's doing everything they're telling him to do. And it's his big WrestleMania moment. He's getting booed out of the building. And then, of course, the whole surprise ending where Seth Rollins cashes in and then pins Roman Reigns. Because, of course, they're not going to pin Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar has a 3-year deal now, so they want to keep him strong. So everyone thought that was actually surprising. I kind of felt like it was going to happen. I wasn't sure if he was going to cash in and win the title. Like, I thought it was going to be one of those things where maybe he'll cash in and Roman Reigns will pin him instead of Brock Lesnar to win the title. But it was kind of the other way around. But I kind of was like, he's held on to this darn suitcase for such a long time. He's got to cash it in at WrestleMania. And he does, and he wins, and good for him. I mean, this guy's been pushed to the moon. He's a great heel. He's a great personality. He's a hard worker. I think Seth Rollins deserves that title really, really well. Whether or not this was the original idea or not, a lot of people are now speculating like, oh, since Brock's re-signed and stuff, you know, they changed their idea, or Roman Reigns wasn't over enough, so they had to switch it at the last second. And who knows? Maybe that was their plan all along, you know. And I feel like it wasn't a very, you know, it was an unpredictable ending. I think it was a satisfying ending. I wish maybe Seth Rollins would have been in the match a little longer, but it kind of made sense that you wanted to give more, you know, that he would want the two of them to beat the crap out of each other so they'd both be fully worn down, because face it, with him in there with those two guys, he probably would have been destroyed. That's the story they're giving. So he's a good chicken heel for the most part. You know, he's one of those kind of heels that he relies on other people to help him win sometimes, but at the same time, he's good enough that even if he doesn't have someone, you can still believe he'll win. So he will use cheating tactics to win, but at the same time, you know he has the goods to win without it as well. So I like it. So overall, it was a great WrestleMania. Low points were probably and I'm going to say, for nostalgia reasons, there was some good parts with the Sting Triple H match, but other than that, I was kind of disappointed with the final outcome of that. The Undertaker, Bray Wyatt, was great to see the Undertaker. Overall, it was kind of a slow match. Not sure if it did much for Bray. It was a good U.S. title match. Not sure if that's good for Rusev, though. So, you know, so it's kind of one of those iffy things. It was great overall. They have a lot of momentum now coming out of this. They have every title except for the tag team titles changed hands at WrestleMania 31. Every one. So, in my opinion, it's table flip time, as they call it. What are they going to do with that? Are they going to try making the secondary titles mean more? You know, Seth Rollins literally has feuded with everyone last year, so he has so many ways he can go with that world title. It could be with Roman Reigns, it could be with Orton, could be with Brock, it could be with Dean Ambrose. You never know. He has so many people he's ticked off, you know, so he has a lot of different ways. Plus, he'll be on TV more. He'll be a world champion that'll actually be on TV. So that's good as well. So, overall, good. Was it as good as WrestleMania 31? I don't know. You know, I think that Daniel Bryan story in WrestleMania 31 and the wrestling in general was pretty epic. So it's give or take, you know. The wrestling was decent overall, you know. It wasn't over the top, but it was a really, the spectacle of it all just heightened it and made it even better. So good stuff, really good stuff. Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, if I had to give a match of the night, I'd probably be Seth Rollins and Randy Orton and Seth Rollins for the match of the night. I know a lot of people might disagree with me at that, but anyway, so there's my WrestleMania 31 review. I hope you enjoyed it. I am usually a gaming channel, so if you do enjoy some gaming stuff, check out some of my other stuff as well on this channel. And also, if you did enjoy this wrestling talk, then tell me about it. If you did like this, I might do some more wrestling vlogs, or maybe do a channel or something like that, giving my opinions on it. So, as always, thank you for watching. If you did like this, share, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, because when you do that, that puts a big smile on my face and lets me know I'm doing my job, which is entertaining you. And till next time, game fans and wrestling fans, keep playing, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye.